Excellent. Welcome. Good evening. So glad to have everyone with us as we start the month of February with Groundhog's Day, where our focus for this month is motivation. And I will fully admit to the fact that while doing things around the house, Groundhog's Day was playing on the television. And I'm watching this, what is it, 1993 film. And in the movie, the main character, who some of you may know, ironically shares the name of our beloved groundhog, right? Phil, the main character, Phil's motivation throughout the entire movie is to get out of Punxsutawney. Like, he spent much of his days in Gobbler's Knob, just trying to figure out how to avoid people, how not to do things. I think there was a whole sequence of times he attempted to like just end things just because he wanted it all to be over. And then eventually he realized that he could use his growing knowledge to his advantage, right? So he kind of took advantage of a few scenarios. We watch him, go off with a bag of cash and take advantage of some ladies as he got to know them and things like that. But there was eventually a point where he used his knowledge and experience for good. And he became the hero of his own story. And it was after that point when he started to just give to everyone around him in the town every day. He found someone to pour into. That's when he finally got what he wanted all along. His motivation had clearly shifted. So tonight and this month, as we talk about motivation, will hopefully help all of you to find, like, what is it that is your motivation? What motivates you on a daily basis? What motivates you in the classroom? What helps to instill some kind of inspired motivation in your students? And so we're just grateful for you to be a part of this journey with us. And we will start tonight with Tim and his words of wisdom.
Thanks, Cecilia. First of all, welcome. The words of wisdom, and I'm going to explain them just a little bit, is taken Peter Drucker, probably the best known business consultant out there. The words of wisdom is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And his point, and I happened to get to work a year with the lady who wrote his biography, Dr. Liz Eldersheim, brilliant lady. But his point was, all of the stuff we do doesn't make any difference unless the culture is in place. So that's why culture is strategy for breakfast. Now let's translate that to what you and I do. The vast majority, if you look at content and context, the vast majority of our preparation to be music educators or whatever is content. And I have to be careful here because some of these people know this person. Was teaching a young lady, phenomenal bassoonist, did everything well, exemplar in everything. Her lesson plans she created were just unbelievable. She checked off every box. I think she woke up looking good. I mean, one of those kind of people. Never did anything that wasn't an A+. She couldn't relate to people. And when it came time for student teaching, she went out and failed the first one. We went again, almost, but not quite, and ended up sort of dragging her over the goal line. So my point is that we get so excited about the content. Me too, by the way. But if the ability to connect with other people around us, the culture is not there, where people open their minds and embrace the information, the content coming forward, don't know what difference it makes. And the next part of this is content, context may be a form of content because you can practice it. You can get better at it. You can work it. And it's not something we turn on or turn off. We become it. So for all of us who are SLAM members and part of the Slamology or whatever it is, we know that you don't just get there, but our quest is about the journey of getting there. And of course, there is no destination. So culture eats strategy for breakfast. Got to get the culture right. Words of wisdom. Thank you, Cece.
Thank you. Always great. Always a great reminder. Scott, what do you have for us tonight?
Well, this will be a good piggyback. So, when I was at Wando, every year, one of the things I tried to do, so where my office was and my desk, there was um, a window that went out into the rehearsal space, and I always put signs facing me so that when I was getting ready to start rehearsal, I would read those, especially with everything else going on in the during the day, and they would change from year to year. And so I want to give you a tip, and it's basically this: every day going to the podium, ask yourself if your present state of mind allows you to be enthusiastic and passionate about the act of making music in an environment where students feel loved. Do your students know why you love music and love the collaborative process of making music with an ensemble? Do they know that you care about them as individuals and that you truly believe they will succeed, even when they don't believe in themselves, right? These traits, along with establishing high musical and personal expectations, will create a wonderful culture of excellence. Remember, there are multiple ways for them to feel a sense of accomplishment. So culture, purpose, enthusiasm, and passion combined with the love of making music and getting the opportunity to make a difference in the life of a young person. I don't know that it gets much better than that. I really don't know that it gets much better than that. So the tip is create inspirational reflections that will allow you to maximize personal and musical connection with your students. That's the tip.
Ooh, that's a gem. I hope somebody was able to type that one up. We need that one in the chat. Can you say it again for us, Scott, please?
Yes, create inspirational reflections that will allow you to maximize personal and musical connection with your students.
Put it in the
Beautiful.
chat, somebody. Put it in the chat. Maybe Scott will.
I know there's somebody who's adept at that. And it's great. I mean, and what a great connection to, our previous month. We spent January kind of talking about those connections and the value of building those relationships, whether they be with the students in our classrooms, with the parents who surround us and support us and volunteer to help elevate what our efforts are, our colleagues, whether they be staff members in our own program or just our colleagues down the hall, just making those connections, but then how meaningful it becomes when we move it to the podium. So thank you so much, Jaden. Thank you so much for putting that in there. Look at you. I love it. Team effort here. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I'm so pleased to be able to introduce our guest for this evening. And I will be very honest with you. I've been a Facebook follower of his. And if you don't follow him on Facebook, you need to now. And there was something, and Glenn, I meant to look it up. There was something that he posted that just like bells and whistles and lights were flashing. Cecilia, get in touch with Glenn. He needs to talk to our Slamily. Like there are so many brilliant thoughts that he shares, both practical, pragmatic, and just really thoughtful, that I think that this evening we're in for such a treat. He's on faculty at Vandercook, so some of you may have even been in his classes before. He's been all over the country as a guest clinician and conductor and authored articles, and I think most importantly is married and has 5 wonderful children. But we're so grateful that Glenn made time to share with us tonight. Please welcome our guest, Glen Schneider.
Thank you, everybody. And yes, thank you for the invite, Cecilia. This is when I see the faces here, especially the leaders on the call. This is like a hits close to home for lots of connections here. So I was also on the call last week and really enjoyed that. So I'm just going to throw something in the chat, by the way, everybody, so that I don't forget, because I'll get started and then it'll be a struggle. All right. So motivation, that's the topic for tonight. That's what I was asked to talk about. Really thankful for the incredible opportunity with Slam. I'm actually not sure if they asked me to talk about motivation because it was just like a random assignment, or because I come off as a motivated person, or because they think I have some sort of secret to staying motivated. But I definitely love the topic of motivation, and especially student motivation. Before we get going with that, I definitely wanted to acknowledge last week's powerful talk from Larry Livingston. I've had many students play in Larry Livingston's ensembles, honor orchestra, honor band. He's come and talked at my school. We inducted him as a Triumph Honor Society, a legacy member. I mean, he's a great connection. And, I have a couple common threads to piggyback off of Larry's talk. First of all, I'm also a band guy. That's my thing. And also, same as Larry, my dad was my band director. He was also my private lesson percussion teacher until I was 18. As a matter of fact, both of my parents were band directors, full-time, family, that whole thing. And the one thing that Larry said that really stuck with me about his whole talk was he used the word metric. I don't know if you remember that part of the talk, but he said the metric is the idea that the real measure of success is in the emotional penetration. So the metric for him is the penetration, the amount of engagement that you get out of your students. That really hit home for me. It still continues to be the challenge of being a great teacher is, am I making a difference? And I also wanted to say thanks also to Tim Lautzenheiser. There's been many Father's Days where I text my dad and I text my father-in-law, and then it ends, right? Usually for most people, those are your dads. But I haven't hit this every year, but almost every year I remember to send Tim a text on Father's Day to say thanks for being a man who shaped me. I just feel like he's on that list of guys. And it's a very, 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 very short list. So I just thank you so much, Tim, for being who you are. And you're just a great example of a person that doesn't stop for the same reason that Larry shared, which was it's the metric. It's like I still can make a difference. So thank you for, I'm here because of you in a lot of ways. So before I talk about motivation, I wanted to just hit a couple of things about my career. Whether you know me or you're hearing from me for the first time, I want you to just understand where I've come, because I think context, as Scott said, and Tim said, the context piece is so important. So I'm 45 years old. I have 5 kids. I'm married. I've been in music education for 24 years. I actually graduated from Duquesne University, so a lot of us have that in common here on this call. In 2001, I started teaching in Fox Chapel, Pennsylvania at that point, teaching K through 3 general music. Then moved to Illinois, which is where my wife is from. I taught middle school, assisted at the high school for several years, finally became the high school head director in Oswego. Had a wonderful time there. At that point, I also went back and got my master's from Vanderbilt College. Met Charlie Mangini. I had some amazing connections there. And I really became kind of known in my district and even in like the Northern Illinois region for growing programs. Because the programs that I was involved in at the middle schools and the high school, it just became a passion of mine to study the topic of student recruitment, student retention. And guess what? When you study something, you get better at it. We were in a struggle in that area, and the amount of energy I put into that topic really became a fruit for our program. In 2009, I moved over to a different district and opened up a brand new high school called Natia Valley High School. Big, large, 3,000 plus student high school, all the bells and whistles, state-of-the-art auditorium, you know, the whole thing. And I spent 13 years teaching there. At some point, we had well over 950 students in the music program. It was essentially running its own school at that point. And the pride that I got to take in that job was I wasn't the department chair, but I was tasked with being the instructional leader for the music department. So, you know, at any given time, we would have 9 or 10 or 11 music teachers on staff with the accompanist and such. And so I actually loved the fact that I didn't need to do the department chair work, but I got to dig into the instructional work. That kind of led me into getting a second master's degree in educational technology. And that bridged the gap back over to Vandercook College. They were just starting their online music ed program for graduate school. I had just gotten this ed tech degree, and the worlds aligned, and I started teaching at Vandercook in 2013, 2014. Since then, I've written all these graduate courses online. I've connected with easily over 500 graduate students worldwide. And then the last couple of years of my career, I spent conducting the Naperville Youth Symphony. I was the interim band director for 3 years at Wheaton College Conservatory of Music. To say the least, between my first year of teaching at Fox Chapel, kindergarten through K through 3, all the way through high school, college, graduate school, I've done it all. And I'm going to go back to Larry's comment really quickly, where he said, you know, the chase, the dream, the idea that the college experience is the best. Well, I would check that at the door. While there's truth at it, I think my high school days were probably, if you wanted to talk about the musicianship and the richness and the deepness, I think those probably were, in fact, some of my favorite rehearsals. And honestly, some of those play party games I sang and taught to my first graders were just as meaningful. And I'm honest about that. I'm truly honest about that. A couple of years ago, my career suddenly and unexpectedly shifted, like major shift. Probably the most surprising job offer I have ever received, quite frankly. One of my personal friends was experiencing major growth in their business. He was a co-owner of a local business here, and I was not looking for a job. We were having them over for dinner, and one conversation leads to another, and he starts telling me, "You would be an amazing manager for our company." And I was kind of like, "Oh yeah, I could probably do that. That's funny," or whatever, and didn't think much of it. About 6 months later, after a couple of coffees and more meetings, these guys started to get really serious about this, and they were basically pursuing me and saying, "Well, we want you. We actually want you to, like, if you would consider quitting your day job, basically, you could continue doing some other extra things, but we would love to have you run our company." And I kept on telling them, "You guys, you know, I'm a drummer, right? Like, I'm a band director. I'm not schooled for this, and yet I think I actually am in a lot of ways." So one thing led to another. I made the switch. I decided to take a pretty major career shift and joined a company with 9 employees. To now, 3 years later, we have 26 employees. The year I joined up, we were doing 2.5 million in revenue. We are now doing 15 million in revenue. And the amazing thing is that I feel right at home. I feel like what I do every single day is I help employees play their notes right and get my sections optimized and get everyone thinking about the right goal, why we're playing this piece of music, why we're doing this, and why it motivates us. And so, yeah, luckily I wasn't in a place where I had to quit all of my music stuff. I can still keep my Vandercook College stuff moving along and helping band directors in that realm. I'm actually developing lots of different things right now because I have a little more flexibility in my time and my schedule. So leads me to my latest project, which is that I'm developing a website, which just was released a few months ago, called bandcourses.com, where I'm trying to really up the game as far as professional development goes for band directors. And, you know, my goal is right now as band directors is the focus. this is going to be hopefully in the future an all-encompassing music educator portal or website. So I'm very motivated to continue doing what I've always done, which is to help people to be passionate about what I love and to hopefully help people realize their passion. So the topic of motivation here tonight. I happen to be visiting Northern Illinois University tomorrow night to talk about this exact topic. I'm going to be talking to all the music education students there tomorrow night at their convocation. And I was thinking, I'm going to be talking tonight to teachers. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to be talking to pre-teachers, right? And yet, I feel like the pre-teachers, the music ed majors, and even the 30-year-old veterans on this call tonight, we all have something in common, which is that we get up every day and we want to do better. And as a teacher, you're there to help present the choices. It's not about expecting students to hit standards and drive the standard. To me, as far as motivation goes, it's about letting your students choose their path and then helping them see what standards are possible within that choice. So the motivation leads to choice, and then from choice, you can talk standards all day long. The best and most practical way that I've learned to do this is honestly by studying this. And the best way I could summarize my entire career of motivation is in that link that I put in the chat for you. Alan McMurray's short article called The Path of the Artist. So if you want to click that open and check that out, you can read it on your own time. But I'm going to definitely help us through the big picture of this article. And this is the Alan McMurray, and I think he's spot on this, by the way. He says that musicians, and particular student musicians, come to our rehearsals, come to our programs, come to this experience, and they enter either as a participant or a player or a musician or an artist. And I believe this to be true, by the way, of kindergarten all the way through college. You could easily be a college level musician and still just be a player, maybe trying to be a musician. And every band student has a band teacher and a band parent. And they're all trying to kind of work as a trio together to help this student musician move down the path. So we're like really just influencers on this path. When the teacher or the parent owns the path more than the student, what happens? The student is now taken away the ability to make the choice because it's now the director making the choice for them. It's now the parent doing it for them. And this directly impacts their motivation. If you take autonomy or student choice away from students, you are essentially taking their motivation away from them. So if you're struggling with student motivation, my suggestion is this: study student motivation. Have your students read this article. If you have really young students, you might need to, doctor this up and kind of paraphrase it in your own words, perhaps. But my high school students, even my ninth graders, my younger students, they loved this article. I would even hand this out on parent night, back to school night, and say, parents, we don't have to talk about the uniform or the folder or the checklist or the practice charts. We're going to talk about this for 10 minutes before you move on to your next class. And so when everyone's really aware of the choices that are possible with music and student education here, we're all part of what I would say more of the music learning process and not the music making process. Think about how much of your day, how much of our week, how much of our brain space is obsessed with music making and not music learning. To me, this article, this 4-phase article here, is 100% about music learning. And when we focus on the results, we build shallow programs, shallow communities, shallow bands. When we focus on the learning, we're going deep into what it really means. So I've really, over the years, I've applied this to well over 500 graduate students. In almost every one of my graduate classes, even though the topic may range from score study to retention and recruitment to maybe program development, they all have to read this article. It is a common staple in all of my classes. And what I've realized is that music education has lost focus of the fact that students are capable. That's what we tend to lose because we're so busy. We're trying to chase the thing. And because of that, the autonomy comes away from the student experience. I've also felt that band directors, like students, need your own path. So this doesn't just, you don't become a musician and then you become a band director, then you've arrived, right? You start over in a lot of ways. And now we have this issue of saying, so what does it mean to be a band director in the first year, in the 5th year, in the 10th year? How do I move into, bettering myself? And so at the next link, if you want to follow that, that's a bandcourses.com link. And you can check out the website. I'm busy building all these classes that you can take. Nearly all of them are free, by the way. I've connected with dozens of teachers throughout the country, and they are busy making video courses literally as we speak. There should probably be about 30 to 35 courses built just this year, as a matter of fact. They will all be free, by the way, which is exciting. Now, this assessment, which is also free, you can click on it and go through it. I would suggest that you go through it every single quarter, as a matter of fact. This is very much a practice used by organizational leaders, is to take an assessment quarterly to make sure you're on track and staying on track. But this is going to allow you to do the same thing as the path of the artist with the path of your program. And so the categories are emerging, expanding, established, and enduring. When you take the assessment, you'll score yourself in a variety of areas, and then it'll tell you whether you are one of those 4. An emerging program is basically in startup phase. You're growing, you're trying to build stuff, you're trying to get people involved. And an expanding program, you're working all that out, you're building processes, you're trying to gain resources. An established program is now focused on standards. Now we're getting better. Now we're playing harder music. Now we're going to try to, focus on festivals or competitions. Now we're to that point where the quality is getting better. And then finally, an enduring program is one that seeks self-fulfilling culture. The culture is driving the program. It doesn't rely on a single person. There are no single points of failure. So I would tell all of you that are in the experienced realm, year 25, year 30, you're going out pretty soon, you're about to retire. I would ask you this question. When you leave, is the whole thing going to fall apart? Because if you are, then you're still in an established program. You don't have an enduring program. Only enduring programs can have personnel switches and the thing stays on course. Enduring programs have student leaders, and when the student leaders change, the thing stays on course. So basically, the assessment is saying, this is where I am, and then every day you have the choice to make things better. Now, the roadmap. This is the big takeaway. You're probably saying, so if I tell my students that they're a player, or that they're a participant, or if I tell myself that I'm only in not the enduring one, but maybe the established category or the expanding category. If I'm in those categories, how the heck do I move to the next category? How do I get my students to move to the next category? Well, I think we're trained in music ed. I think we're trained in our profession. There's enough resources out there to get the kids from step 1 to step 2. I think we're doing a great job there. But where I think we still lack, and this is the whole point of my band courses website, it's the thing that I try to get to, the essence of all my graduate courses, is that we need to have a system to help teachers move in the path. And so I've tried to really kind of process out all of the teaching world that I have developed over the years. And then now this new general management career that I have now, again, they're very similar, but business, they talk about things a little differently than in education. And both worlds should really glean from each other in a lot of ways. And they do. But so this new, experience of mine is leading me to say, wow, there's a lot of management missing from being a great leader in music programs. Think about it. When you have a favorite band director, a favorite choir director, you're looking to them for those big picture, great personality traits. You're not looking at them sitting in your seat as a player thinking, gosh, I love their score study method. Gosh, I love their baton technique. I mean, maybe those are some pieces that ultimately lead you to believe that they're great teachers. But the interesting thing is that we look to them for their personal, their character, the way that they improve culture, even if it's an honor band, right? And so we go into music education thinking, I want to be that. I want to be a big picture leader. And yet we lack the management skills to pull it off. And so that's all the stuff that I'm really hoping to bring to people, processes, systems, all that. I really have a heart for burnout with teachers, and I want to help avoid that. And so spread the word, get this out. I hope that this can be a really, really helpful resource for most people. Remember that the secret to burnout is one thing. I'm going to give you my little secret for tonight. And Scott, I hope this hits well with you because this is your wheelhouse. And Tim, this is your whole mantra of everything. My secret is that if you want to avoid burnout, running your college program, running your high school program, running and gunning and with your hair on fire, you have to unlock and activate the magical component of every music program that, in my estimation, is very untapped. And that component is student leadership. The students are so much more capable than we give them the benefit of the doubt for, right? The reason you burn out is because your students have not stepped up. And many times, I'll be brutally honest, and I only say this with love because I've just interacted with so many great teachers that are burned out. It's because you haven't let your students do the work. You haven't let them lead. Remember that 15-year-olds were generals a few centuries ago. Remember that 8-year-olds can memorize concertos and outplay adults. Kids are the future. So my personal philosophy of music education is that music is a critical experience for all people. That is the foundation of everything I do. It's my belief. It's what drives my work forward. And it's usually where I start my work every single day. And it's where I'll end tonight. Thank you.
That's outstanding, Glenn. Wow, thank you so much. While you were talking, Paul, do you want to just unmute yourself? I'm trying to find you asked Glenn a question in the chat. Will you go ahead and ask him before we go to breakouts?
Am I limited to just one question, Cecilia?
We're gonna go to breakouts. Maybe you'll
Okay. All right.
breakout room.
Just tell me a little bit more about how you differentiate music learning from music making. Give me a couple more examples of how you differentiate those two.
Well, let's remember that they're both music education. So music making, the way I see that is that there's the student that comes in that doesn't want to learn. Have we all experienced this kid? They want to do the music, but they don't want to learn about the music, right? And then you have music learning, and in many ways, this is what we as teachers are all about: lesson planning and trying to connect the dots with the repertoire in the middle school to the high school. And yet, I really do think we fall short. I think we focus more on the music making. We get to the concert, we get to the football game, we do all the stuff. And yet the kids don't know how one goes to the other and A connects to B and to C and to D. They don't understand it. And it's because we don't let them reflect. We don't ask them to connect. And by the way, music learning is about the connections for me. And kids are baby reflectors until they become toddler reflectors. And then they become middle school reflectors, and then they become scholarly reflectors. If you are teaching high school and your students cannot articulate the importance of music education in their life and why they kept it in their schedule for 8 years, you didn't do your job. No one did their job. I don't care if they played Rocky Point Holiday and all the Susan marches. You didn't do your job because you didn't let them learn it. So music making and music learning. Now, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be hard-headed enough to say that they're really separate. They live in the same bubble. But you have to flip back and forth as a teacher and say, we're going to make some music right now, but then we're going to talk about it. And we're going to keep on going back and forth. And if, by the way, those of you that think you don't have enough time, the reason why you don't have time is because you haven't made it a priority. Your students will learn the notes faster. They'll play harder music. They'll play more musically. They'll love you more if you just talk about it more.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Glenn.
Brian,
Hopefully that was helpful.
Brian, did you want to ask a question before we go to breakout rooms? Will you unmute yourself first, friend?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. Man, thank you, Glenn. That is just great stuff. And it's a great question that you asked, Paul. I just wanted to share something that Mr. Whitwell always told me, and I probably didn't ever get it right, but I got better at it as I went through my career. But the learning and the music making also has to be connected. And you were getting there with that, Glenn. He said, you can't wait until the concert to have the tingles, to get the kids to have the tingles. They need to have the chills and the tingles and the music making experience every single day. You know, in a 1 hour rehearsal, it might only be a 3-minute tingle, but they have to get the tingles. That's what hooks them in. And, you know, you marry that with the learning. And so that rock on, Glenn. I don't know you personally, but I can't wait till we actually can get to know each other. So thank you for being here.
You bet. I wholeheartedly agree with that, by the way, that students are willing to not have the tingly moment in the repertoire if it happened in the chorale and vice versa. But you got to get them to something, right? Like Peter Boonshaft calls it the pearl at every rehearsal. It's true. It's the pearl. It could just be for one measure. And if they get a glimpse and a little taste of that, they're going to come back every day and want some more.
For sure. David, I don't mean to steal your words, but I think that you may have put something in the chat that I ended up getting and not everyone got to see. And David said that crafting culture, what we get together to talk about on a regular basis and what our book says, provides a system for everything that Glenn is talking about, right? Creating a student-centered culture where students have ownership and belonging. That's what we're trying to instill in our programs and share with everyone here. So when you go into the book, if you've got your book nearby, because I know a lot of you already have a copy, if you turn to page, and I'm doing this because I don't actually have a book, because everywhere we go, it sells out. And I put mine back on the shelf so someone else can buy it. But on page 119 is motivation part 1. That's where it gets started, where we really jump into motivation. And one of the very first statements is that motivation is the desire to act in service of a goal. That's why we're here. So my question, thank you. Scott's got his copy, appreciate it, right? And I see Steven said he got his. Oh, look at all of them. Oh, they're beautiful. I love it. My question for you, and I will post these in the chat as well as you go into your breakout rooms, are what are your goals? What motivates you? And how will you inspire your students to share those same goals? Because that's where the success comes, right? In that shared vision. It's not I, me. It's definitely we, us. So how do we come to those goals that motivate our program to move forward day to day? All right. So let me send you to your breakout rooms. And then Allie, hopefully you can screen capture, grab a bunch of those, and we'll turn your words into the words that we share out, not just in our members page, our private page, but as we start to have more and more followers on our Facebook page, and we need to learn how to do that from Glen. So that we're still navigating some of that. I think we're approaching 1,500 followers on our public page. So thank you for helping to get the word out. I see some names and faces who are new to a Sunday night. So we just want to say a special welcome to all of you that maybe are joining us for the first time this evening, or it's been quite some time since you've been able to be with us. We hope that you found your time as valuable as Brian did. Brian said that the people in his group made it the best breakout session ever. Brian, what was so awesome about your group? What did you share could you share one pearl with us?
Well, can I ask Brant to share instead of me trying to paraphrase? Brant, you on?
Love that.
Yes, I am here. I just ran back from the kitchen. Yeah, it was it the one where they're not looking at the music anymore. Was that the pearl you wanted me to? So one of the really cool things about working with a non-varsity band, a bunch of freshmen, is when you have moments with the kids and they're not looking at the music and relying on the ink. So you're telling them, hey, let's make music, not just play the ink on the page. It's about way more than that. And they finally have a moment and it's magic in the room. And then the rest of the rehearsal is magic. It's really cool.
Thank you so much for sharing. How about, let's see, somebody that was in room 3, like Kristen or Landon, Lisa, in Tim's room? What was the pearl that room 3 had tonight?
Go, Kristen.
Now, Kristen, you have to. Tim called you out. Unmute yourself, my friend.
Maurice, I just lost his name. I loved it about the joy, to try and remember, always keep the sense of joy of why we're doing it, and the joy of making the music together.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, so my tenor bass choir, Cambiata baritone choir, is working on Laudate Dominum by Dan Davison, and it. Of course, we as musicians, we think about it on such a deep level, but sometimes what's really great is they just kind of remind me of the joy that it is to sing in Latin with a bunch of other boys. And that they're just fascinated by the harmonies and the way that it's kind of like a conversation between the two parts. And I was just saying how sometimes the kids can kind of remind us of the goal of not losing that sense of just that innate joy that music gives us in our quest for excellence. And to me, I don't know, that's the coolest thing. One kid told me, he said, yeah, I was in the bathroom and I was singing, and my mom said, "What are you singing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm singing Laudate Dominum. Don't you know it?" So, and this kid's a wrestler. He's a wrestling coach's son. So, it was good stuff.
I love it. Don't you know it? What's wrong with you,
Yeah,
Mom?
right.
My
Right.
jam.
Oh, that's his attitude. He's great. He's all ego and he's got a sweetheart though.
That's fantastic. How about room 4? That was Nathan and Paul, Rich. Did you have a gem from your room?
Yeah, I
Sean?
think there's probably 2 gems. One gem was recognizing that there are kids all over the United States going through some extreme struggles. And for us to create a place of safety and belonging is essential, and music does that inherently. And the other is to recognize that as we strive for excellence, we're doing it as a community. We're not doing it with one superstar quarterback or individual. We're doing it as a community. And that's very powerful, both in striving for the excellence and achieving some of that excellence.
Can I tag on that just a second, Paul? We were talking about making music and the art of all of that. And I'm going to probably embarrass my good friend Young here but I was in the middle of multiple meetings at our state conference this weekend, and I said, I cannot miss Young's concert. And so I ran in, and it was one of those moments where everything just kind of melts away because Young shares such a great love of music that his children just emote it. And at that point, it's like they can't not. And so as we're experiencing all of this, I just want to encourage us to think. I know we're all in assessment mode and all that, but to Paul's point, there's a lot of people, whether it's in a crisis zone or your zone, kids are in crisis. And it's so valuable to take 5 minutes, even if it's somewhere over the rainbow, to create something that's beautiful musically that they can have a respite moment and experience that serenity in that safe space, that brave space that you're creating. And Young, I just want to say I love that every time I've ever been in your room, your kids get a chance to do that. And so I want to use that as an opportunity to hopefully inspire others to do the same.
So Glenn, I just on behalf of our whole family, once again, just thank you for making time to be with us tonight. Do you want to share something before we say goodnight this evening?
Well, first of all, I'm very available. As far as reaching out for personal stuff, you can get my email from Cecilia. Honestly, I love connecting with people and helping them, whether it's in a grad class or just via email. I continue to be amazed again at the parallel between the education world and the business world. If you're curious about how that works, we can connect on that as well. My last thing is I shared this with the group that I was in on the breakout is there's a thing in the business world as far as goals go, and it's more for the CEO than anybody. And that is that the CEO must have a BHAG. A BHAG is the big, hairy, audacious goal. The BHAG is so important for you as the band director, the choir director, etc., to share with your students. If there is something that you want to do that sounds absolutely insane and impossible, we only have band once a week. I want to have band every day. I want to march my band down, Pasadena Boulevard in the Tournament of Roses parade. I want to start a third band. We only have two. Whatever these things are that you're like, dude, it's so impossible. We're never going to get there, but it's still my dream. If you share that with your students, you are highly likely to succeed and probably surpass whatever it is that you share with them. Don't be afraid to share it. And whatever your BHAG is that you share, they're going to share one back with you, I promise. And then the real stuff starts to happen. If you're going to talk about goals, get big and get crazy.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Tim, do you have some closing thoughts for us?
Oh, I don't like to talk in front of people. So this is going to be, well, first of all, the coincidence 3 weeks ago, my Uber driver was Brenda, and this week my Uber driver was Kara. What are the chances of your Uber driver being Slam members? I mean, holy criminy, what a coincidence. And then the other thing is, Glenn and Cecilia, there's no greater trophy than a student. And that is just a selfish, ego-driven statement. And that's why when we finish these slam sessions on Sunday night, I close the lid and start crying. Andrew goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm really okay. Yeah, thanks." So yeah, keep working on that culture. Strategy will show up for sure. Thanks, CC.
Thank you all so much again for being with us tonight. Sadly, we are not together next Sunday because your board, I know, I'm so sorry. Jaden says, oh no, because your board will be working hard. We're going to have our board meeting for this part of the year next Sunday, but we will be back together on February 16th with our dear friend and sister, Beth Fabrizio. She just presented at GMEA, and let me tell you, she talked for an hour about woodwinds, and she knows more, like right here, about woodwinds, right? And or has forgotten more than most of us know. She could have gone on for another hour. And what's incredible about all that fountain of knowledge is that she could go on for days. We could just listen to how great of a human she is and how this far into her career, what motivates her is to be able to pour into others. So I really hope that you'll make time to join us on the 16th. And we really wish that you make great music and great memories with your students in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for being here.